Today I'm doing a funny thing. I'm going to analyze all the characters that came out before Fontaine, and I'm going to rank them based on how much they improved with the new releases. This doesn't just include Furina's impact, of course, it also includes the impact that came from new artifacts and other new characters that made others shine. The tiers are pretty straightforward here. Better is for all those characters that improved in terms of playstyle and or damage with Fontaine releases. Healer improvement is for all the healers that synergize well with Furina specifically. Unclear is for characters that could have improved but it's not that clear yet. Unchanged is for characters that didn't receive a significant enough change to be placed in the better tier. And losing steam is for those characters that are seeing their place become less relevant in the meta. Not necessarily worse, but just being replaced on some teams. The first character in this list is Ayaka, and I'm going to put her in unchanged. While I analyzed a team with her and Furina, which included both Jin and Shenhe, and the damage of this team looked quite nice if compared even to juggernauts like Ayaka, Shenhe, Kazuha, and Kokomi, the reality is that stripping Kazuha away from Ayaka has huge repercussions in terms of playstyle. Removing a grouper from Ayaka's team will almost never be a benefit from a playstyle standpoint, and when it's not even a benefit from a damage standpoint, there is no point, so I don't expect her to change in terms of meta with Furina out. You can potentially replace Shenhe with Charlotte, for example, to avoid replacing Kazuha with Jin and retaining a healer, but there is still a loss from a damage standpoint in that sense, excluding if you use Thrilling Tales on Charlotte, but triggering that by buffing Ayaka is quite clunky and hard, and I would not suggest that. Let me remind you all that if you enjoy my videos and my theory crafting, you can show your support by subscribing and leaving a thumbs up and also following me on Twitter. The second character I'm ranking in this list is Xianling, and I'm putting her in better. The reason she is here is that while she's not being specifically buffed by Furina, she gained a lot of new teams with Fontaine. Line, Brisley, and Nuvilette can all use her with great benefits, even though she's not being a primary damage dealer in those teams. In Monopyro, she is a quite nice sub DPS while still supporting Line, and in Burn Melt and Burn Vape and in Melt teams, she's enabling all those elemental reactions for the stronger DPS. This is an absolute win for a character that wasn't that flexible before in terms of teams. She was mostly played on national variants, be it Raiden carry or Child carry, while with Fontaine she's gaining new teams where she doesn't even need to be paired with Bennett, for example the Burn Vape team with Nuvilette. Next in this list is going to be Bennett. This might be controversial, but I'm putting Bennett in losing steam. The reason is simply that Bennett isn't universally going to be the best support healer option moving forward for all the characters. Furina will make healers that can keep up with their team-wide HP drain worthwhile from an offensive standpoint, and that doesn't necessarily include Bennett, at least conventionally. Since these teams are shaping up to be very competitive and possibly better than a lot of Bennett variants, is going to be replaced on some teams, and this kind of fits the meaning of the losing steam tier. I will still consider him a top tier character moving forward obviously, but maybe not as universal as he was before, and this is something that actually already started with Sumeru, with Dendro-based teams not benefiting from Bennett that much. Moving on, the next character in this list is Raiden. Raiden is in my opinion going to be unchanged for the most part. Furina doesn't really benefit her team that much. Her hyper team doesn't really improve from Furina's addition, also because even a character like Yelan was never really on it. It was always Bennett, Kazuha, and Sarah being the staple hyper team for Raiden, and Furina's addition which will also require you to replace Bennett with Jin, for example, to get a lot of stacks, isn't really that beneficial. This is also the case for the national team, where the addition of Furina and Jin instead of the Hydra option and Bennett isn't really beneficial for the team from a damage standpoint. Next thing is Mika. Yeah, Mika is getting the healer improvement treatment. Mainly, Mika is a physical damage support, but he also provides attack speed buffs which will benefit a lot of characters, and since he also heals, this goes well with Furina. Specifically, he has both team-wide heals and active character heals, and he will fit well with characters like Grizzly, Yoimiya, and Wander, so characters that can benefit from the attack speed buffs. And also, of course, he fits well with Eula, but we'll get to this later when I talk about her. Mona. Losing steam. I almost want to put her in unchanged, but I think I'm going to put her in losing steam, yeah. The reason is pretty simple. Furina does what she does, but she does it better, and she also deals a lot of damage on top of it. So she basically has no place left in the meta, excluding some freeze teams where her fate can still be more practical than Furina, since you can also use Kazuha with her, I guess, but in general, Furina feels like a total replacement to Mona in terms of kit. Next up is Fischl, and of course she goes to better, mostly because she got a new artifact set with the Golden Troop, which increased their personal damage by about 18%, which is a lot. She also got a new team with new Villet Taser, where she can be good, but she's not that impressive honestly, so it's not quite an update on the same level as the Dendro update was for her, but she still got better, which is nice for a character that was already very strong. Next up we have Jean and Sayu. I'm going to put her in healer improvement at the same time because they're both kind of the same, honestly. They're both anemo healers, they heal differently. One heals more on cast, one heals more on the active character, but for the most part they're both characters that will improve with Furina and be perfectly usable. I'm also going to put all the shielders in losing steam right away. So Thoma, Zhongli, Diona is a bit of a shielder and a healer, but her healing potency is not that impressive, so she goes here. And Kirara for the 3 people that own her, and Layla. So it's simple, all of these characters are mostly shielders, while the next meta, the Furina meta, will reward healers more. So there will be more of a need of a healer on team for offensive purposes than there will be for a shielder. They will still have the interruption resistance thing over the healers, but for the most part, it's not going to be that impressive compared to the healers. Next up we have Wander. Wanderer is actually interesting because he becomes better, which is probably unexpected for some of you. He already had Yelan on some of his best hyper teams, so it's only natural that Furina can fit there. But how is the question? By simply replacing Bennett and Yelan with Furina and Jean, there is already a bit of an improvement, but that is not the full picture here. Furina specifically makes 2 things viable in Wanderer. The first is Grizzly's signature, Cash Flow Supervision, which is very similar to Wanderer's signature in terms of passive, since it increases the normal attack damage bonus and attack speed, but on top of that it increases the attack percent of the character and also the charge attack damage bonus. This opens up for the dreaded charge attack based combos, which were ludicrous to think about with Wanderer's signature, which only buffs normal attack, but make much more sense with this new weapon that buffs both charge attack damage bonus and the attack speed of those charge attacks. The second thing that becomes viable on Wanderer is the Marashu C set, which will be able very easy to get stacks from with Furina's HP drain. This set in terms of damage profile is just better than the Chronicle set for Wanderer, and is part of the reason Furina is an improvement for him, a big part of the reason. Of course, the Furina variant isn't sure to become the best Wanderer composition in all scenarios, but from a numerical standpoint, it looks like it's very worth it. Next up we have Yelan. And Yelan will become better with Furina. While it's true that she will get replaced by her on some teams, she will also see her double Hydro teams become better, considerably better, because the double Hydro core with Furina and Yelan now will be the main thing moving forward from a damage standpoint. And since this core will also need to include a healer, it will fully replace Shincho's role on the team, because Shincho provided both damage and comfort from a defensive standpoint, and this will fully get replaced. We're going to see a lot of double Hydro teams moving forward, and Yelan is probably going to be on a lot of them. Now that the cat is out of the bag, let's talk about Shincho. And Shincho goes in unclear. The reason it is like this to me is that while he's getting replaced on many teams by the Furina Yelan double Hydro core, and at a core he previously was on, I think there is still the possibility of using Furina and Shincho in this double Hydro Core, and it won't be that much worse than the Yelan variant. Shincho will definitely lose out on damage, but he will still provide interruption resistance, which is a benefit, and you'll basically have a healer on team and also the interruption resistance, which are the benefits from a defensive standpoint that you would get from a shielder. So the double Hydro Core with Furina and Shincho will still feel very good. I will quickly go through all the characters that don't receive a particular change from Fontaine. So let's see, Albedo and Ito, where is it? The Mono Geo core, because I don't think Furina will fit that well on their teams. It's very unflexible, so just putting Furina and another healer on this core is pretty hard. You could argue that Goro's healing could count for Furina's skill, but I don't think that's very practical, so it goes here as well. A lot of Dendro characters, specifically the ones that mainly fit with aggravate teams. So Tignery, where is Tignery? Where is Tignery? Here. Unchanged, we have Yaemiko, here for sure. So let's see, we also have Lisa, Collie, I guess Ganyu, she doesn't improve that much for the same reason as Ayaka doesn't improve that much. Xiao doesn't really improve that much either because he could already use the Marashu C-set by himself, and the addition of Furina on his team isn't really that much of a gain, if at all. Razor, since his only good team now is the Nahida Dendro based teams where he basically trigger every possible reaction, but Furina doesn't really help that. The supports like Sarah, Yunjin, Tarzan are all going in unclear because it's not really dependent on them. If Furina helps their carry, then they're going to improve. If she doesn't, then okay, whatever. Next we have Sino. Sino becomes better because Furina just replaces Yelan or Shincho on his double Dendro Quick Bloom team, which also includes Baiju, and since it's a 1-to-1 replacement, it's much easier for Furina to be an improvement from a damage standpoint. However, this won't really change Sino's primal issues, which is the multi-wave issue, so it's not going to get a lot better, just feel better in terms of damage. Nahida became better as well because she got a lot of new burn-based teams, the Nubilet burn vape teams and the Grizzly burn melt teams, which are actually pretty nice. And she will benefit from Furina on some teams because those teams will get better, like the Sino teams I just talked about, so she becomes better. Baiju and Yaya also get better. I think Baiju is a bit better and more flexible, but they're mostly interchangeable, so they both get better with Furina. Next we have the trio of Animo healers, Sucrose, Venti and Kazuha. This is interesting because I think Sucrose and Venti are losing steam. The reason is that if healers like Jin and Sayu become more relevant on Furina teams, that means these two characters won't need to be used, they won't be used on those teams. So they're possibly losing steam, and then putting Kazuha in unclear because while he's also seeing his place being in danger, he is much more of a certainty compared to these two characters. Specifically, his buffing capabilities combined with his grouping capabilities make him more than able to compete with the possibly stronger from a damage standpoint Furina teams. Next we have some characters that are technically seeing an improvement in terms of damage calculation, but in practice it might not feel like it as much. So characters like Ayato and Hutao. The reason is that while the Furina variants of their teams are better compared to the current teams from a damage standpoint, the healer on these teams is still replacing a utility-based character like Kazuha or Zhongli, so in practice it might not feel that much better, even though in theory it is. They won't suffer from this as much as characters like Ayaka or Ganyu do because these two are characters that specifically benefit from grouping a lot, so losing Kazuha or Venti for them is huge. The same kinda applies to Yoimiya. If you're replacing the Zhongli variant for her, then you're losing a shielder for a character that really needs one, and if you're replacing her hyper variant, which would be Yelan, Kazuha and Bennett, then she's not gaining that much in terms of damage, because Kazuha double swording on these teams is a big reason the damage is so high. For Klee, I'm going to say unchanged. Furina potentially makes her better because she makes her able to use the cash flow supervision like it is for Wanderer and the Mana C set, but Klee's main team is Mono Pyro and Furina doesn't really fit that well on it. There are ways to shape the team differently and make Furina fit on it, but then it will not be a Mono Pyro team anymore, it will lose its identity, and I'm not confident in it being stronger than this AoE juggernaut that is the Mono Pyro team with Klee. Eula actually gets better, which is nice, she deserves this. The reason is that she already had this team with Yelan, Raiden and Mika, which was very strong, arguably her strongest team, and replacing Yelan with Furina is an improvement for it, so it's an improvement for Eula. Next we have Deia. Deia gets a little bit better, not because of Furina specifically, but more because she fits well on those Burn Melt teams or Burn Vape teams with Grizzly and Neuvillette, where she can be a fine defensive option. Her main DPS teams also get a little better because Furina fits well on these and will allow her to vape some, but not much better. I think her main role will still be that of a support. Next we have Cookie, which goes to unclear to me. While she is a healer that can technically benefit from Furina some, she mostly fits on Quick Loom teams where she is built with Elemental Mastery, meaning she won't be healing that much. It's not about how many stacks she'll generate, because she can still potentially be a damage gain for those teams. It's more about how much at risk you are of dying. I don't feel like the Quick Bloom teams are the most durable already. They can survive, but they're not extremely durable. So if you're adding Furina to that mix, it just makes it worse to me. So I don't know how practical this will be, but technically from a damage standpoint it can be an improvement, so she goes to unclear. Then we have a trio of drivers that can heal, so Kokomi, Noelle and Chi-Chi. These three will all be driving the double hydro, triple hydro core with Yelan, Furina and possibly also Xingqiu, and they will be doing the part of the healer on the team, because they can all heal on a team-wide scale in some way. Specifically, they will heal the whole team while using normal or charge attacks, which means they have to be on field and be drivers of those teams. These teams actually look quite nice from a damage perspective, so there is a gain here for them, and they will also be usable with the Ocean Clam set, since they will be healing a lot and triggering a lot of damage from that. Next we have Shenhe, which goes to better because she fits very well with Grizzly, especially at high constellations, like Constellation 6 Shenhe is just incredible for him. But in general, she is very nice for this new character, so she goes to better. I'm actually going to make a completely new tier for these three healers that are basically the carries on those teams, so let's do it. Healers. They are carries. And there go Kokomi, Chi-Chi and Noelle. Nilo goes to unclear because while Furina buffs damage bonus for the whole team by a massive amount, that won't benefit the bloom damage, which is the biggest source of damage on Nilo teams. I'm putting her here and not in unchanged because Nilo teams are really hard to decipher actually. You can't just tell which one is the best or which one will clear all the abyss rooms the fastest, because each one has its specific matchups. So I can definitely tell that Furina won't be an improvement for her. She goes to unclear. Yeah, I'm a fraud. I'm a big fraud. I almost forgot about Child that goes to unchanged because his best team is still international and that isn't changing. I guess it can be used with Nubilet on those double Hydro teams that are very situational and based on the abyss you're facing. They're not a staple team for him. His only very good team is still International, and Furina isn't changing this. And this is it. This is the list. Honestly, the biggest improvement Fontaine brought to the table in terms of meta change is the fact that team-wide healers now feel much more relevant, as opposed to active healers like Bennett or shielders feeling less relevant. Other than this, we have a lot of characters that definitely improved, and some other characters that potentially improved, but that is yet to be seen. And also some characters that could improve if healers with better utility come out, so there is definitely potential for the future. That's it for today, see you next time.